Hello and welcome everyone to our webinar today with Stefan Boer, CEO of Green Gas Advisors. Stefan, very happy to have you here today.
Thanks for the invitation.
You're welcome. And my name is Lisa Aibaya. I am the Green Gas lead for GO2 Markets. And here today to discuss the topic, which is biomethane in the European carbon schemes, navigating the ETS1, the German national carbon scheme, the BEHG, as well as the ETS2, which will in 2027, but we will hear more from Stefan, replace the other two carbon schemes. Before we start, a few words about GO2 Markets. GO2 Markets was founded in 2013. We are based in Berlin, and we are a trading house for renewable energy commodities with a vision to inspire, connect, and lead the way to a greener tomorrow. We not only trade, but we also advise our counterparts globally and to meet their sustainability goals, basically, and work really closely across the board and with many products and services. To give you an idea about the products and services, we do green gas, of course, biomethane. We do EICs, we do energy efficiency certificates or white certificates in Spain and in France, but also in Hungary. We do carbon solutions, and we also are active in PPAs as well as BPAs. But yeah, our advisory service is active or is helping corporates to define the value chain strategies, SBTI targeting, as CSRD reporting, as well as CDP disclosure. Globally, basically, sorry, we are represented in 65 markets and countries. We have 10 regional desks covering Europe, of course, the Americas, and also Africa. And we speak over 20 languages fluently, which is very cool when you're visiting our offices in Berlin. Just some numbers, what we did since 2013 for our clients. We procured over 140 terawatt hours of ESCs, close to 5 terawatt hours of biogas, 44 terawatt hours of white certificates in France and Spain, as already mentioned, and close to 23 million tons of carbon offsets. Thanks for attending. I hope we create a very informative but also interesting discussion and webinar for you today. Just about the structures, it will be Stefan, of course, having time to introduce himself and his organization. Then we will run a little poll to understand a little bit your challenges regarding carbon schemes regarding biomethane and the different carbon schemes. Stefan will then dive deeper in the subject and present more details. We will then have another poll about and to see just if in our discussions which will follow, if it makes sense that we specifically dive into one market. And but for sure we will then also close in time and give the audience or give you enough time to ask questions and discuss on those. Stefan, and one more information at the end, you will have the option or the possibility to book a meeting with me, but also please let me also share the slides and the recording. So Stefan, thanks.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot again for the invitation. We're sitting here, as you can see, in the living room of GO2 Markets. And it's cozy here, so feel welcome to join us and have a look at what we can tell you about biomethane in carbon schemes. Two things which are usually not together, but today we'll get you there. And before we start, some words about me and my company. So Green Gas Advisors is an advisory. I call it up-to-date advisory. We always try to be at the very tip of the development regarding biomethane and green hydrogen. There's a lot to say about this and a lot developing still. So there's room for advisory services, specialized advisory services. We have a special focus on verification systems and regulations and standards, because that's where the movement is happening at the moment. And this is also where advisory of go-to markets is different from mine. The project that I do would not be done there, and the kind of advisory that you serve to your clients, I wouldn't be able to give. No? And in that way, we have been cooperating also. And yeah, today now we are presenting here. So the mission is of Green Gas Advisors, the future of the gas supply as a building block of tomorrow's prosperity. And of course, today we need to set the course for it because tomorrow it's too late. Next slide, please. Yeah, few words on my own. Oh, the title has moved somehow. Yeah. So Green Gas Advisors is active since 2019. In that position, I've been also member of the Dean Committee on EN 16325, the standard for guarantees of origin and energy, also biomethane, and I've been chairing also the gas project team for that standard development. Some publications you see on the right-hand side, the images on biomethane and on hydrogen go on my record. And from my education, I'm an environmental engineer. And before I started the consultancy Green Gas Advisors, I was working almost 9 years for the German Energy Agency, where I was in the very lucky position to start the German biogas registry and also to develop it throughout the years until they now have to develop it without me. Yeah, some other things which are besides my engineering background, it's the theme-centered interaction, which is a method for leading and managing groups, and design thinking for getting creative ideas. So if you want to get in contact with me for the project, this is what you can get. Next slide, please. Some reference projects. Currently, I'm offering the Green Gas Weekly, which is a weekly regulatory update on biomethane and hydrogen, green hydrogen in that case, in Europe, Germany, Netherlands, and UK. So if you want to be all the time up to date what's really happening, this is your product. I'm developing in Ireland the biogas registry since 2019. Now the GO registry for Ireland will be next up. So this is also some of the things which we do at Green Gas Advisors. We have the Green Gas Network, which is open to join for everyone, free of cost, where things can be discussed on green gas, just on a peer-to-peer basis.
Can I ask you?
Go ahead. Yeah, of course.
Indonesia and Ireland, how come?
Ireland was, I was there in the right moment to ask, and then they were happy with me and been staying with them ever since. Okay. And Indonesia, there was GIZ was looking for somebody to implement a national biomethane strategy, and yes, this is how I help them, and to give examples from Germany and also from other countries in the world how they implement biomethane, and they're in a very, very early stage, but they see the potential and they really want to develop it. They have abundant, in contrast to Germany, they have abundant biogenic resources. So, yeah, for example, from palm oil mills, they have huge amounts of residues which they can turn into biomethane. Just to give you a brief idea. Yeah, then you took the word already. Take it over. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I cut you last slide. Didn't intend to do that. Okay, but then let's run the poll. Yeah, please let us know what you see as the biggest challenges navigating biomethane in the carbon schemes. Let's see what you say. And this is also defining a little bit the focus of our discussion. So the more take part, the merrier. Yeah, next time I will ask you this. This would be, now that we're waiting, I could have asked you the Indonesia and Ireland question. Well, 100% price level. Okay, now we see it change it.
The number of participants was low.
Yeah. Okay. Is this live also? The results, so everyone sees them. Okay. Yeah, regulatory uncertainties. Okay. I thought price is. Oh yeah. Okay. Before interpretation. I mean, I think it's already clear. that regulatory uncertainties are the main factors. So, Stefan, very grateful to have you here and tackle exactly that topic.
Yeah.
So, over to you and your presentation.
Yeah, so I hope you learned something, and whatever you don't understand, give me a call, then I may be able to help. So please start the presentation. At the moment, we still see the poll. So I will start my presentation. It's structured in 3 parts. As soon as you see it, I can say more. So first part would be on the basics. Yeah, okay. You see on the very top the structure, introduction we passed. Now we have the basics, which we'll cover. So I hope to, in 3 slides, to bring enough to you so you can follow for the rest. And then would be the price levels. And for price levels to understand, you also need to have the basics, of course. And then in the third part, it's already advanced expert level, I would say, grids and registries, what you need to do for this in order to get your business running. This will be the outline of my presentation. And before we go deeply into carbon schemes, you see on the right-hand side an image of what you can do with biomethane. So if you're in Germany, at least, you would say, okay, biomethane electricity, EEG, made by methane large. So this is what helped develop the market. However, no impulse from that sector in the last years, to say it frankly, and now the transport sector seems to be covering that, but still slow development. And the heating and cooling sector is maybe something for the future with huge potential as well. But besides the support schemes, there's also a tiny but growing market for gas disclosure, for voluntary marketing. This is also where you're more into. And this gets a new framework, let's say, but all this is not topic of today. Today, we're now in the bottom case for the ETS1, ETS2, for the defossilization. Learning now that decarbonization is not the right thing, especially if you're talking about biomethane, because there's carbon in it.
Okay.
So let's talk about defossilization. And ETS2 is their equivalent or synonym used with the NEIS, with the BEHG law, which you see in the second, how they interact and how they go together. And the thing is, one thing which I would like to give to you today is, or you can combine the 3. So it's not, you have to go either to the top, to the middle, or the bottom. But if you have one which is interested in, I would like to market my thing, I'm obliged under one of the ETS schemes to report my emissions. And I have a plant in that special case, an installation, which, for example, is able to take the electricity subsidy in Germany. Then you can have all 3 applications at the same time. You have the EEG plant working for giving you subsidies. That is located in a company subject to ETS1 reporting. Then you can use both. And if you now also get the GO for it, connected to it, then you can also say, hey, we've procured green gas. This is our internal net zero strategy, part of that. So these are not opposing, these are, let's say, complementary or parallel to each other. Go ahead.
And this is applying for all over Europe, apart from the electricity, right? Or are you aware of any other country which is greening electricity through biomethane?
Yeah, this is also possible in some other countries, but it's in Germany, electricity has made it large. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Now we dive into carbon schemes. Here, the 3 carbon schemes we're discussing, it's the ETS1. And then next was the German BEHG, the NEIS, which is only active in Germany. And then you see the ETS2, which is coming up and which is now everyone's discussing it because it's really starting to kick in soon. And you see ETS1 had different phases, trading phases, and the BEHG, the NEIS, was intended to last longer than just the 1 year, which you see here, where it's dark blue. It was intended to continue, but now that ETS2 is coming, they said, okay, as soon as the ETS2 kicks in, then we'll phase out. So that is a direct transition from BEHG to ETS2, which we can see. And those are in parallel with the ETS1. just to.
Okay. And the introduction phase of the ETS2 started already, yes. And how does it work? The introduction phase of the ETS2 and the BEHG actual, or the actual.
Yes, there's two completely different functioning for the introductory phase. So in NEH, in the BEHG, it was that they said we introduce it, and then there's a time where there's no market price, where the price is defined by the government, and that was defined to rise slowly. You'll see on one of the next slides. And for the ETS2, they said, well, we do have the working ETS1. We keep it separated, but in the same framework. And the introductory phase is that in 1 year, companies have to report their emissions. Next years, they have to report and certify their reports. So there's an additional thing. And the next year would be report, certify, and then get the certificates, the allowances, the allowances for emissions. So this is the introductory phase depends rather on the obligations of the companies, slowly giving them more and more obligations. Yeah. And you could also say that ETS1, so if you look at the very bottom, at the very beginning, also had an introductory phase, because in the first phase, the certificates were for free, which they are not anymore. And every phase and every step, more things come, more obligations, and they get stricter and stricter. This is something which you can watch throughout the development.
Okay. And do you know by any chance the emission saving between these different phasings? So from the start to I don't know, either the ETS2 or to 2030?
Yeah, so the emission savings, that's the one thing which we'll also see in one of two slides, is that we cap the emissions. So you issue allowances, and you can only emit as a company or as a country or as Europe as a whole, you only can emit as many carbon emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, as you're allowed to. And so by this, the governments, they can define how much will be emitted by the European Union. And for the ETS1, we're now, after 20 years, we have reduced around half of the emissions of 2005. So we're now, in European-wise, at half of the emissions which we have had back then. And the trajectory, so what's planned, is to save 62% compared with 2005 until 2030. And for the ETS1, the ETS2, so the new one, the trajectory is to save 42% in those sectors compared with 2005 again. So it's a bit less ambitious, I would say. And this is also because politicians didn't want to impose so much things on the people. So maybe next slide is the best thing to do now. The difference between ETS1 and ETS2, where you see ETS1 is directed towards large emitters, and ETS2 to small emitters, like everyone's who's using cars or heating buildings will be hit by the ETS2 payments, not by having to buy those certificates, those allowances, but by having to pay a bit more. So in Germany, you can already see this from the BEHG, that things are getting more expensive depending on the emissions. And this will be governed by the ETS2 in the future. Yeah, and you see ETS1 is now not only industry and utilities, it's now also aviation and maritime. And there's one thing on the bottom right where it's the waste, the waste industry, where it's still in discussion whether it goes to ETS1 or ETS2, or even if Germany keeps on operating the BEHG further, even after ETS2 has started, just for that sector. Just
to make things a little bit simpler.
Yeah, exactly. Germans are very, very much into making things complicated. Yeah. Good. So just to explain the basic principle, because that's important to understand. Most of you will be probably aware of this, but just to take everyone on board. So in the ETS, the companies, ETS1 now, the companies are required to get allowances to obtain them in different manners in the different phases, but now they would be bought by tenders. And each company has an allowance to emit. And you see, for example, here, the company would be allowed only 1 block less than it had before. Then they do this company A, yeah? Then they would do reduction measures, and then they would emit 2 blocks less than allowed than before, and 1 block less than allowed. And so they have too much certificates because they got the 4 blocks of certificates, but they only needed 3, and now it's not the cap anymore. Now it's a trade. Now they can sell it. They can sell it to company B, which didn't do the emission savings measures, and they still have high emissions, which is okay, but now they have to buy from company A. And the market price for this is the UA price, which you can see, and which you probably can get good advice from Lisa in the future, if you need something of this. Yeah, this is the basic, the cap and trade mechanisms of the ETS, and it's similar for ETS2, and or more or less the same for ETS2 and for the BEHG in the trading phase only. Yeah. Okay, now we started talking about carbon, but we wanted to talk about biomethane. And now here's how biomethane comes in. And you see a few building blocks here. This is how I like to work whenever I get the chance. I design my concepts usually in the beginning with building blocks, and this is a very fundamental thing. So it's fine to use them here. Biomethane in ETS has a role in the meaning that you can use biomethane instead of natural gas, for example. And then you have emissions, carbon emissions, just carbon dioxide, like before. Before you had natural gas emissions, now you have biomethane emissions. But the difference is nothing in the machinery or in the emission. It's only where the carbon came from. So it's it's the origin difference. You had the carbon, which is in the atmosphere now. It's the same carbon which was removed from the atmosphere when the plants were growing. So this is the idea. So you don't have to take carbon from underground, from coal or natural gas, but you take it from plants which have taken the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, put it into the biomass, and now they can emit it.
This is from crops, but of course you have also the waste or the wastewater or different sources, right? For the carbon or the manure, especially,
Exactly. And all those have in common that the carbon is biogenic. And all biogenic carbon is climate neutral. And this is the background of zero rating. And this is enshrined in ETS1 and in ETS2. So in that case, you can either do efficiency measures or you can buy biomethane, and then you have saved emissions.
Did you ever see in the past a time where this building blocks, actually it's nice to have the slide on, where this was even, where the biomethane price matched the gas price plus the EUA price? In any location, in any market?
Short answer, no. The longer answer we'll see in a second on the next slide. Okay. Just before we go there, it's important to remind that ETS allows the zero rating or includes the zero rating of biomethane, but requires sustainability criteria, which we know from RED, Renewable Energy Directive. So it has to be sustainability criteria and minimal greenhouse gas emission savings, which have to be complied with. And you need to certify this, and you need to use some mass balance systems and all that stuff. But this is just one additional requirement. And one last thing to conclude with that slide. If you think about how much natural gas is used in the European Union at the moment, or in Germany, it's a huge potential for biomethane. So the market is huge, but, and there's a but on the next slides, we're not quite there yet. And I'll tell you why we're not there and why it's kind of difficult to get there if we look at the price level. Okay, so what do you see on that slide? What you asked for were prices. So we will start with the carbon prices, and then we get to biomethane prices next. So on the left hand, you see the EU ETS price level. So just look at the curve, not at the bars in the back, the price curve. You see from the beginning, 2005, the prices were quite low and it never really went up until, you see in the end, they're gaining traction. And on the right-hand side, you see the BEHG, the NIHS prices, which are defined by law. So they didn't are not a result of market movements, they are a result of legislation. And you see they started low, the scale is equivalent, so I made the graphs to have a similar scale. And you see meanwhile it's in the level. So the x-axis is much more scaled in the right hand side, but you see we're getting to a closer limit, to the closer area, closer range, where you can say, okay, it's now important for decarbonization that those prices get higher, that things get more expensive if they use fossil carbon, and this is the idea of the carbon markets.
Okay, and here I see the big price rise of the EUAs in what is it, 2021? Yeah, 21, making a big jump. And I also remember that back in the days, because this is when our clients started to become interested in the possibilities of biomethane in the ETS and the carbon schemes, especially from importing. So you're saying this, what we saw on the slide before with the different little blocks, this would that, you know, the price was never even. There was a time that was even, you know, it depends from which market, of course. But there are times, yeah, in the past where we saw that happening already. And of course, but in the grand scheme, and I guess also if you compare the whole of Europe, you know, it depends how detailed you looked at. I just wanted to mention that. But do you know why the prices raised so much in 2021? The EUA prices, what the reason? Because there was no war yet, right? So
I mean, one reason is the different phases. So in every phase, they made less and less and had stricter regulations. So this was raising the prices. But indeed, I also remember back in the days, it was the end of one of those, or in the middle of one of those trading periods. I don't really have an explanation. So they also said, well, they overrated the prices back then. But yeah, maybe it was somebody pushing the prices to influence policy, but that's just a guess. Yeah, but since then, so the new trading phase is stable. As you can see, it's got in the range where it's moving on, and this means the market is functioning, I would say.
But with the ETS2 coming into place, we could, in theory, see a potential straight rise again, right?
Could happen, yeah. So there's also discussions about the start price of ETS. Before you said you heard about high prices, expectations. My expectation, I don't have a model for this, but my personal expectation is that the prices would range around what the BEHG said, because this is what politicians aim for, at least. Maybe they made mistakes, maybe that doesn't work, maybe they need to bug fix it, but on the long run, they would like to have the two aligned, ETS1 and ETS2, but I think the idea was to have a price level like in BEHG in the end.
But why would Europe you know, adapt to Germany, let's say? Why do you know? Normally it's the other way around.
No, it's just because they have been cooperating on this, and I don't think other countries. So the idea behind lower prices in ETS2 is that people who have cars, who heat their houses, they're not burdened more than the economy. It's the other way around. That they want to keep their mandates, their government mandates, and they don't want to be people on the streets claiming too high carbon prices. But this is why I think at least the intention was to have a price level like we see in the end of BEHG. This is my just without having any deeper research on this. Okay. But I heard also those projections that there would be really high prices.
Yeah, I heard about an average, I think between 69 or something on the low end and 300 on the top end, and like an average of 210 euros per ton by 2030, so not by 2027. But yeah, it's a little bit scary to think about the repercussions of that, of course, on the now not on biomethane, but on the economy.
No, definitely we will see.
Okay, we will see. One question regarding the former slide, please. One on the second, just for clarification. Can you just explain very briefly the NACE prices, why there's a little price difference to 55 and 65?
Yeah, the last year of the BEHG. So that is let's say a smooth introduction into the planned market phase of the BEHG. So in the first years they had a fixed price, and the last year, or it was intended to be the first year of the market price, they said, well, the lowest price can only be 55 and the highest 65. So if anyone would, if there would be lower prices, then you can just get new certificates at that price. And if there's higher price levels, then you could get more certificates of that price. So there's some rules which would prevent too much oscillations in the price level.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
And maybe also interesting in that context, no slide on it, but for ETS2, they also said we do the so-called front loading, where they say in the first years, they issue more certificates than what they actually would like to, but they reduce them in a few years later, which could lead to high prices in 2030, but low prices in 2027. Yeah, that could be the effect. Yeah, but we'll see also this.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, next slide, please. Yeah. So the high carbon price may be a bad news for all those heating houses, but maybe good news for those producing biomethane, selling biomethane, because there's an incentive, let's say, some kind of a government subsidy support or whatever incentive in the carbon price for biomethane. And you see a very simple slide on the right-hand side, but that's the relation between carbon prices and biomethane prices. So just to take an example, that if we go for a carbon price of 100 euro per ton, so it's in the middle of the graph, then we will end up at 20 euro per megawatt hour, which biomethane has an advantage over natural gas. You remember those blocks we had on the right-hand side, the biomethane price, and on the left-hand side, you had the gas price, and on top of that would be the 20 euro per megawatt hour biomethane or the carbon price, which biomethane does not have to pay, but natural gas has to pay. That is the idea behind that. And you can now imagine high carbon prices bridge the gap between natural gas price and biomethane price. And just to spoil the good news already, there's almost all other fuels in this world have higher carbon content, and they're applied much more. So the carbon price of biomethane, the carbon price effect on biomethane is rather low. So if we have high prices for carbon, it has a bit of an effect on biomethane, but not quite as much as on coal. And so pushing biomethane to carbon prices will make other things much more expensive and lead to problems up as well. That's the message here. And I concluded the slide that the carbon price is usually not sufficient for a single business case. You always need to combine it somehow, but it provides tailwind.
But I also want to mention that it was in the past, and I see it actually nowadays as well. There are markets where the prices, it depends if there's a subsidy scheme in place, and where prices are meeting the, it's basically economical. It makes more sense to buy biomethane than EUAs. We still have the problems, of course, of the unclear regulations, but this is where we're here today.
Okay, after this a bit nerdy slide, something where I would like to give credit to Wade also. Wade was one of my clients where I've been spending quite a while with them, and one of the results was that graph. They included me in their team for a really long time, which was a nice phase, and I helped them develop this graph. So what you see here, it's at the time when Russia invaded into Ukraine, and you remember the prices going high, both for natural gas prices and for carbon prices. Not only, but these are the two relevant here. And so what we did is we took the relation from the slide before, calculate the gas price, which is the green line on the bottom, and then what is the current EUA price, which would be added on top, and that is the blue line, which sits on top of the green line. So these are added on top of each other, and you see the prices were high. And if you look on the y-axis and you would have biomethane for sale, then you can always say, okay, here, just from the carbon price and the gas price itself, if I stay below the curve, then I can sell it with value. Otherwise, natural gas is still cheaper. But you see what I said before, the gas price had much more impact than the carbon price. So you see also when we enter the curve on the left and we leave the curve on the right, there has been some movement, and the carbon price effect is much higher now with a higher price, but still, yeah, it's a small effect. And if you sign up to wait, you can always get the current date on that curve. I guess they still have it today. Okay, next slide, please. So now we come to the expert information. Biomethane in the EU gas grid. So how to get, if you're operating or forever a factory or whatever, or a house, how do you get biomethane to that factory? And there's good news. It's quite simple. You can transport it through the gas grid. So you can use the whole European transport system, which you see in quite small, but depicted on the right-hand side. And there's a new regulation since RED 3, which says that the EU gas grid is considered to be one single logistical facility if, and this is mandatory, if you use the UNE database. So if you inject something in southern Spain, biomethane, record this in the UNE database, and you move gas in Germany or in wherever in the European Union, then you can say, okay, this is the biomethane which was injected there, just by assigning it. So it's kind of a book and claim system, not quite, but goes quite near.
But is that already operational since the UDB is not operational? So no, okay.
No, not yet. Yeah, this is coming up. Yeah. I mean, there's some intermediate options to do this, and also the German Energy Agency, Biogasregister Deutschland, they accept it in that way, and the voluntary schemes, they also start accepting it this way, but the real recognition will be fully working only with the UNE database.
Okay, and how, I mean, because one question regarding the gas grid is Ireland and mainland Europe, and via the gas grid being via the UK not being part of the EU. So how is that going to work? Do we know anything about that? Yeah, so this is also, of course, something which I'm discussing quite intensively with my Irish clients. Yeah, so the short answer is yes, it is possible. And the long answer is it has been long vagueness, and the European Commission was asked by many stakeholders and not really getting a reply. And the best thing that we have is on the UNE database wiki questions and answer page. There's one question which says, will it be possible? And the European Commission wrote, yes, Ireland will be part of the European gas grid. So this is all we have. Yeah? Maybe not much, but it's not in any law. But I take it as a sign to say, well, if they all pull in that direction, and there's actually no one who really pulls in the other direction, so that will be coming up. And as soon as the UNE database will be up and running for gas, yeah, we will see, and that will be the final decision maker, I'd say, the UNE database. Okay. Thanks. Yeah, yeah, the basic function of the UNE database, to say it in that respect, is to have the one registry for not only biomethane, but for all biofuels and also for hydrogen in the EU. And here's a brief update on that as well. It's about mass balance systems. So the companies which transfer gas, which operate with gas somehow, they have to operate those mass balance system to allow consignment trackings. Yeah, and if you want to go into one of those obligation schemes or into ETS, so if you want to produce electricity, if you want to heat a house, if you are obliged for ETS 1 or 2, you have to use those mass balance systems and have to certify all those tracked consignments by one of those certification bodies which are recognized. And what you also have to do in the future, so we're talking about now about the near future, to register those consignments in the UNE database. And here again, it's a single logistical facility. So focusing on biomethane, it would be inject in southern Spain, and then withdraw something in Germany or in Ireland, and cancel or forward the POS from the UNE database to that authority, which it has to recognize. And yeah, that should be working. The official launch of the UNE database was last November, but it's still not working. So what's your idea, or what do you think when it could? I mean, speculation, we know, but what is your? Yeah. So what I heard from people who really use it, they say, well, they have now
really evolved, and they're 90% there. And my expectation, so also the German legislation, recent legislation, it included already the union database. So the member states are including into the legislation, which is missing building blocks still. But I think more or less they're almost ready. And I think it makes sense from at least from the point of view of the European Commission to have it launched this year, because they would then be able to use it for statistics for 2026, and this is what it's made for, but may not work, and then it will be 2027. But
so either this year or 27. Yeah,
I guess so. Yeah.
Okay. And one question also, because of the mass balance system, because you have the GO where possible, of course, you have the proof of sustainability, the POS, which needs to be transported. So do I understand it right that it's not a requirement from the ETS basically, or from the from the carbon schemes where you can apply biomethane, that you have a mass balance delivery of the physical volumes, but rather from the voluntary schemes like ISCC, Red Cert, which say they need to always be the link to the physical, or could that maybe be something which we see disappear?
No, I think the link to a physical consignment will always remain. That will not be removed.
But it's so contradictory to what you said just now from the UDB. No?
It's just the single logistical facility is some use of the mind, where it's inside the gas grid. This relation to consignment is what I would say. It's very loose. So you still have to inject something. So you can not just say I produced it. You have to inject it somewhere, and you need to operate the gas here, and you need to operate some gas in the country of consumption. So you cannot just say I'm greening it like with a GO. This is a bit more. So you always need to have some kind of consignment, but of course the link between the injection and the withdrawal from the gas grid, this is lost somehow. And that's what you probably refer to, is that ICC has published some new updated guidance only for consultations, where it seems that they would like to go away from this. Maybe this happens, but this would always be in line with European law. I'm not sure if they really go there, because if other schemes don't follow, they would just lose their customers, which cannot be. And if the European legislation doesn't require this, it will not be implemented or imposed by voluntary schemes.
Okay, one more question about the injection of because a GO can only be issued if there's injection in the gas grid. So a GO, which could be a proof of injection, which then would mean no further, links, no further, necessary, no?
There's another. So we're now going very into the details, very into expert level, not just a few words. And this is understandable. So the union database is also about national accounting. So whether does Spain say we have produced biogas, or we have used biogas, biomethane in that case, or does Germany say we have used this biogas? And with a GO, the GO can be transferred to Germany for a green gas product, but then Spain would say, hey, it's our biogas, it's our national contribution. With the union database, it would be transferred to Germany as a consignment, and then the recognition would happen in Germany. So then Germany would say, hey, this is our biogas. So this is something which is different between GOs and union database.
Okay.
Okay. Complicated. We're in the expert level. I understand everyone who can follow, but if you need to know more about this, happy to explain more in another. This is also now expert level. In Germany, we have the Nabisi registry running since a few years now, and the question is, what happens to Nabisi once the union database is there? And this just this image shows it. So the Germany is allowed to still operate it, to keep continuing it. There's also some registry in Finland, which is similar. They will be continuing their operation, but they have to synchronize their databases with the union database. And this is still work in progress, I would say. Don't know the background, but this is what I heard. So they expect a one-direction synchronization later this year, and a bi-directional synchronization later. But this is the current background which I have. And this means good news for the participants of the market. You don't need to use both. Just put it into the union database and you have it in the Nabisi or the other way around. However, of course, if you want to transfer from Spain to Germany, then Spain only has the union database, and you have to then bring it down to Nabisi.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing. And now concluding, so we also have some time for discussion. Yeah, so what about carbon schemes in biomethane? So I would say they provide tailwind for biomethane, and what you said, they may also help to complete the business case for biomethane, but they're not a single sole business case, so this will not be happening soon, I would say. Reason, the carbon price has only a weak impact for biomethane, so it's not really a game changer. It can do in some niches and some special applications, or with development of the carbon price ever more. But I wouldn't say that high carbon prices will soon get the full market potential of that gas market for biomethane available. So that will not happen. But still, the good news is the zero rating for biomethane, which is in place for years now, sets a role for biomethane as defossilized fuel. So it is there, and it will be there, and but will become more important as the carbon prices rise. And a last thing to say, the union database and this single logistical facility thing with a gas grid will establish a one harmonized market for biomethane in the EU, also in combination with the GO registries.
Okay, I have one last question for that regarding subsidies. Some countries allow or have subsidy schemes for biomethane. How do you see the possibility, because you can in most cases, or in some cases you can import them? Do you think that will also that change with the UDB, with the ETS2, or is that something will remain? I mean, one, the subsidies, and second, basically the export possibilities.
I think the main change that will happen, and we see that already, that the restrictive schemes, they will disappear. So member states who say we produce biomethane and we can only use it in our country, they will have to change somehow. They need to open at least up to allow also this export, because there's not really an option to not use or to exclude use of the union database. So I think that will happen, and that will change quite few markets will fundamentally. And also it will, this is my feeling, but we will see what's coming up, that the different markets in Europe, the different biomethane or support schemes will compete for the biomethane.
So maybe continuing then, but not allowing export, for example? Which would be bad news for our German customers, basically, because they're importing a lot. Okay, thank you so much for the presentation. We are already a little bit late, so let's maybe open the floor for questions from the audience.
So in the Q&A, there's no questions so far, but I think in the public chat there's something that you need to filter, of course. That is difficult.
If you go down a little bit, I saw one longer question down.
Okay.
From Marvin.
So the one we'll be able to see the recording of the webinar. I understood, yes, and also the slides. Please drop any question. Biomethane in BEHG must have a greenhouse gas value of 21.6 megajoule to be exempted from emission taxation. Do you expect this value to sink even further to get the exemption from emission taxation in the future? So this is the minimum greenhouse gas emission savings criteria from RED. And so RED 3 didn't change anything in this, so I expect this to be continued as it is. Whether a next renewable energy directive will change it, I'm not sure, but I don't think so, because they also currently just said for low carbon fuels also 70% is the requirement, so this seems to be a level which they are comfortable with. So I think this will remain the same. So Marvin asked, it's this question. How much represents this economy of taxes in euro per megawatt hour? I think this was the one slide with a graph would answer this. There's a discussion. It's hard to get into the discussion now. If implies 70. Yeah, this is the discussion on this. I don't go into the discussion now. Do one needs to provide evidence for the transport of the biomethane from the biogas plant to the point of withdrawal for BEHG ETS2 at ETS1? Yeah? So short answer to this, as far as I see it, with a single logistical facility, you need to prove the injection and the withdrawal, but for the transport, probably not.
Okay.
Yeah. Then Ion, the last question. Okay, we're down already. Okay. One asked, is there a concern that changing the mass balance rule to consider a single EU harmonized single grid is a step backwards for traceability and rigor of carbon accounting for end users? It doesn't pass the sense check of the molecules transport for a consumer to be consuming gas in Germany that was produced in Spain. Electricity is moving towards more granularity in location and temporal matching, and the Greenhouse Gas Protocol voluntary carbon scheme want more physical connection to the green electron molecule, not less. That is a very interesting discussion. So I think as long as biomethane is only representing 1% of the grid share, this is not the point of discussion we're moving forward. But as we see in electricity, where we in Germany beyond 50% of renewable energy, this becomes an issue because, as you say, production and grid needs to somehow interact. What may be different is that we also have the grids of the electricity of the gas market change much more. So there's retrofitting of natural gas grid to hydrogen grids. There's also removal of gas grids, less gas consumption. So that will be a different discussion. But the point you make is absolutely clear. How far do we get with this kind of book and claim thing in the gas grid? But as the short answer I would give is, as long as the volumes are quite low or the ratio, the share is low, that will not be the driving factor for the discussion.
Okay, thank you very much. And there's another question. Okay,
would a post-transfer need to demonstrate that the biomethane could theoretically have been moved from the producer's injection point to where the buyer is located? This is likely done by demonstrating that the certificate trader is part of the gas balancing and shipping system. That means gas shipper partnership, German golden balancing circle. Yeah, this was part of my consultation for the GO2 Markets as well. So I understand that you can only remove really gas from a gas grid if you're a shipper, or really if you inject it, you need a shipper where you book it too. So otherwise it's hard to participate. Otherwise you can of course as a trading house probably be a somehow intermediary to arrange the transfer, but yeah, the shipper role is somehow required.
Yeah, but we have, I mean, we dive really deep into the subject. So if you, I think this is a little takes longer definitely than the last minutes of the webinar. So if you're interested to discuss this, let's book a session and let me share what our insights are there from further research also. Yeah. This is. Are there any further questions? Otherwise, I have one last question.
Yeah, this is the last question on the list.
Okay, then my last or final question is importing from outside of the European Union, and I mean UK, for example, but also maybe other continents. What do you see a possibility? Will it be easier? Will it be more difficult? Will it be yeah,
and especially the UK and Ukraine are living examples for this. Switzerland. So let's say the general framework is whenever you can import a consignment, a physical consignment, then you can also import a biomethane consignment. This is the general thing. Sometimes they have their troubles because if in the UK, for example, you inject gas into the grid, then it would be accounted for the national greenhouse gas inventory. So Europe says, sorry, we can't take it. You have already claimed it. And if these countries develop their rules in a way that this can be separated. So you know, this has been accounted nationally already, this hasn't, then it would work. And somehow they also want to extend the use of the UNI database to these countries if they agree with it, but we'll see. So this is something up to come.
So basically, in order to do that, you need more mechanisms in place, how the
international cooperation, for recognition of that biomethane. But it is possible, they do it, and if you drive a truck with LNG across the border, it's possible already. And for the gas grid, it's a bit more complicated because the interpretation is different.
Okay, understood. Okay, super. Thank you very much, Stefan, to give us your insights today. I hope you found it interesting. If you have any, as I said, we will share slides and recording. If you have any further questions or want to book a meeting, also let us know, and we will be happy to support and help where possible and clarify where possible. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot also from my end.
Yeah. Nice to have you.
Hope you